That's pretty well the
That's right. This is the pretty men can.
So I guess we'll look at this one. So this is going to be our first inaugural introduction into our Stoic Bros series, where we interview businesses and business owners.
Inaugural.
Our first guest is going to be Juan from Icarus, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey y'all, I'm Juan Lechuga. I run Icarus Independent Productions. We're a photo and video company based out of Dallas, Texas. Actually shooting in our studio today, so that's why the upgrade.
That camera.
I'm doing 3 cameras and full-on green screen studios. So yeah, come check us out. We're located right across from North Park Mall if you're in Dallas.
We might be doing some stuff in the future. We have a partnership. I have a very long-standing relationship with Juan. I've known the guy for like 10 years. This introductory series is to kind of try to bring companies that we kind of feel strongly about, that either have expressed Stoic kind of values in, or that like, we're just honestly interested in. I kind of like it. It's a networking deal for us. You do video and photography and digital stuff?
And digital everything. I mean, graphic design, we've done, I have a photo booth company as well. I mean, we do pretty much anything. What my philosophy is, just say yes and then figure it out.
Just say yes.
I like it. Just
learn
say
that
yes.
from learn that from actors, where they're just like, can you ride a horse? Yeah, of course I can ride a horse.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll definitely ride a horse. I can sword fight. I know how to do all these things. I can dance. Sure. And you learn. You go on YouTube and learn how to do it after.
Yes, YouTube and Google.
So how did you get started in, I guess, media stuff? All right, so cameras and all that.
Well, so I watched Lord of the Rings when it came out. Fellowship of the Ring. I got the my sister
like
got
10?
Yeah. No, I was. It was right. It was middle school. So it was, I was like 12, I think.
He's old like us.
Yeah. And no, it was basically my sister got I didn't watch the theatrical release ever. I watched the extended edition, and it came with all those the behind the scenes extras.
Yeah.
And so that was what I wanted. I saw that, and that's what I want to do. Because I'd always liked drawing, I'd always liked writing, I'd always been, kind of creative, and I did little comics in elementary school and shit. But what really drew me to that was it was just so complete. You could just showcase everything in your story. You could control so much of it. You could create so much, and it brought in so many of the other things that I already like to do into one storytelling medium. And so this is the complete package that I've been looking for.
I like it.
And no other movie had ever given me kind of that feeling of, oh, you can do anything. Like, it's not just like, because you see every other movie and it's like, well, I mean, they're set in real places.
Sure, yeah.
Even like sci-fi stuff, it's like, okay, I can tell that's a set, that's whatever. When I saw what they were doing with miniatures, I was like, this is beyond anything that I would have imagined.
Lord of the Rings was pretty cool for that.
Or even just like, you would see these like behind the scenes stuff. You got dudes literally running up a hillside with horses running and all that.
Yeah.
There's obviously CGI in some of it, but a lot of it was done practically.
The scale of it was beyond, anything I'd seen. Like, even with Star Wars, you were like, well, that's a lot's that computer animated or whatever. But you see
but
this,
it
and
felt
you're
like it was too. Where with Lord of the Rings, you got to see behind the scenes, and then you saw the completed product, and you're like, oh, that looks really good. That looks really cool.
Yeah, it was such a good mix of practical and CGI.
I never thought about that before. That's like one of the first, like, really well put together movies.
You also got to think that a studio had to buy in on the entirety of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a company saying, this is worth the better part of a decade.
Yeah. Filming all 3 at once.
And saying that, between the cast, the crew, all of the logistics, and they said, we're going to spend, I would hate to, I'm sure somebody can
It's like $200 million.
I was going to say, look at the budget for it, and this was...
It was up there. I mean, it was a lot of money that they spent on that, a lot of time, a lot of trust in Peter Jackson.
That's what I mean. I mean, it's a real...
Who had not made anything big before that. Yeah. Pretty crazy.
Worked out for him.
Yeah, but that was what...
I think it worked out.
Yeah, it worked out a little.
He's doing all right.
He's doing all right.
Yeah.
He'll be fine.
I think
He'll
so.
be fine.
Yeah, he's accepted his reality. He understands that it's okay.
He's
it's
very
okay
stoic about it.
Yeah, it's very stoic.
There it is. There it
about
is.
who he is and what he does.
So I guess, what was your professional start into it? So as a kid, you watched Lord of the Rings, and I'm sure that's not the only movie you watched growing up. But...
No, but that was that was the one that made me realize that's what I want to do. That's what I want to study. I don't want to do anything else with my life. That's what I want to do. And so then I went to SMU. I got a film degree and a psychology degree because my parents were like, get a real job.
Get a real job.
So
I have a real job now, okay?
And this is my real job.
Yeah.
Take that. And so I got the degree, and then during college we were doing just dumb stuff. I mean, I was just like doing like college movie projects, writing scripts and just going and convincing anybody that we could to give us stuff and be on camera and pretend to go out into the woods with airsoft guns and shoot
I've
at each
seen
other.
some of those videos.
Yeah.
So before it was cool, and this is just a kind of backdrop into you guys to kind of see behind the veil. I was 18.
Yeah.
I think we were both pre-21.
Yep.
And we had
It was a
was it called
Sony.
Selena?
Yeah,
Well,
it was a
model
Sony
number?
PD-170. So
Yeah.
I looked that up. These were tapes. We used tapes,
Yeah.
little DV tapes that you would have to stick in there. It wasn't even HD. It wasn't even 720p. It was 480.
I think it was 480.
It was a 4.3 480p. You could set it to 16:9, which you would just put 2 black squares over your footage. Or 2 black rectangles. That's all I would do. So it was that's what we got. And to get any footage off of it onto a computer to edit it, you would have to put it in either this insanely expensive tape deck that would code it into a thing, or what we would do was we used a FireWire cable. FireWire is not even a thing anymore.
Yeah, Google,
that died.
Go Wikipedia what a firewire.
This was
cable
before
is.
lightning cables were even a dream in Steve Jobs' head. Like there was FireWire cable to a capture card to before streaming your video games. This was the original Elgato whatever. You would do that, and then you would just play it on the camera as if you were watching it, and it would record it onto your computer through the capture card, and it would fail like 60% of the time.
That's nuts.
And so we had hours of footage that we just had to do that way, and just literally sit there and watch it, just with no sound or anything, just leave it playing until it.
So that's
get on
when
the
your
computer.
Stoic mindset really
There it
Yes.
is. There it is.
That
That's
has
when you
to
learn
be the
to
beginning.
accept that there's nothing you can do, that this just happened, and that's what it is.
It's I guess for anybody watching this that has any experience with film, either you feel his pain if you were in it that back then, and even now with Premiere fails, or you forget to update Premiere, or you're in the middle of exporting and it kind of gives
or your camera battery dies
Yeah.
and you lose all your footage.
If you want to survive doing this, you kind of give up on the idea of rage, because you will just.
It's a good quote.
Yeah, you just otherwise you're gonna spend all of your time in a rage, because there's just no end of things that will go wrong at all times. Your battery's gonna die. We were filming a Pokemon card opening episode, then the battery just died, and we lost the whole episode worth of footage.
Good thing we had 2 cameras.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you learn to do your backups and you learn to do your all of this, and you deal with it. But it's just like if a thing fails, you just accept it. What are you gonna do?
So I guess like
You can't unfail it.
what you started this at what 15, 16,
Yeah.
17 years old up till now. What's been the journey as far as obviously technology's gotten better, but like I guess accepting the reality of like how unreliable filmmaking equipment is and all that, and how it relates to it actually being your professional job. And these are things that this is like a weatherman in Texas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a hope and a prayer and hope it works out. I guess like what's your personal journey as far as like coping mechanisms, or even just how you learn to say, I'm going to do my best. You show me what it is that you want me to record, and what does that look like for you, and how is that journey for you kind of moving forward?
Yeah, that's interesting, because when I was a kid, I had a really bad temper. So like if anything went wrong, I was mad. I'd get mad and I'd be like, the world is unjust, everything is terrible.
Take your PlayStation controllers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I was thinking
That was me.
They were made for slamming.
That was
exactly.
me.
Yeah, they're made for throwing at
These are
stuff.
not.
You had
Yeah.
to work hard to break those controllers.
Yeah, but kind of I guess over time, I kind of there was so much. I don't want to say there was so much of it. Like it's not that. It's more or less that like at some point you kind of realize that all the time you're spending doing that is time you're spending not fixing the problem, not finding another solution, not using that energy for something more productive. And what you end up doing is you take one problem and you turn it into a bigger problem. Whereas like now my philosophy is, if you just ignore that problem, then at the very least you have a different problem. It's like that problem is a problem. If you can do something about it, do something about it. If you can't, put it aside. Get back to it later when you can do something about it. In the meantime, do something else. Because otherwise you're going to be stuck on that problem and fixated on it. And I think a big part of that was, like I said, I was a psychology major. So one thing we did learn about was cognitive behavioral therapy, which is rewiring your thoughts and your brain into how to... It's literally the Stoic mindset. It's basically nothing but like meditation, being in the moment. It's all about what is happening to you right now, focusing on your breathing, focusing on just the now, clearing your mind, and basically taking all of the cycle of anxiety that you otherwise have, that you get stuck in, and just stopping it at the pass. You go, I
like
can sense this is the thing that's happening. Reevaluate it. Is there actually a tiger in the room about to eat me? No.
Mhm.
Then I'm fine. Or
Did you study like general psychology, or did you
yes.
like? Because when I was taking my psychology courses, there was like developmental, behavioral, child, sports.
Yeah.
With my kinesiology degree, I obviously went more towards the sports psychology, but like, man, the behavioral psychology stuff, that stuff was super interesting. So I'm just wondering, like, do you just have like a general? Was it just a general study?
So, well, I mean, it was all of those classes and then some. So I did like abnormal psychology. I did psychology of women. I did.
That's a good one.
Yeah, developmental was awesome. I did psychology of the family, which is super interesting. That's all relationship dynamics. I did organizational psychology. That's business psychology, which basically just shows you like the.
So really, you hit the spectrum.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Got everything.
Yeah, basically. So
I mean,
you had your required courses, which is like your statistics and all of that stuff.
Of course.
And then you had your electives, and then it was just pick what you're most interested in. And for me, I thought if I was going to go into psychology, it would probably be child psychology. But I didn't end up doing that. Especially once I did abnormal psychology of children.
Sure.
I kind of got away. I was like, I can't look at that every day.
Yeah.
That was
that
was some horrifics. It's like.
Yeah.
But yeah, the statistics. I was like, if you add up all these statistical numbers on, he's like, everybody's got something horribly wrong with them. I should probably step back from this. But no,
jaded view.
I have things wrong with me.
Well, no, it's like, oh damn, yeah. You see some really crazy disorders that you learn about. And
Sure.
that, like 1 in every million people has it, but it's like, oh, I'll probably end up seeing it multiple times in my career, and that's really sad.
Because those are the people that are seeking out
psychological
help.
Yeah. And so for me, I thought about maybe going into research and that kind of stuff, but really, this was what I really wanted to do. At the end of the day, but yeah, I think the one that probably had the most impact on me was organizational psychology, which was essentially
for business
psychology. Yeah, and it's just how our corporate system is completely misusing people, and basically making us incredibly unproductive. And that was a big part of the Stoic mindset. Again, it's a lot of it is the way the system is set up is for a world that, for one thing, no longer exists. It's for 1800s industrialist world that we're no longer in. And so most of the stuff that we have is just a holdover of that. And now that we know so much more about how human psychology works and how the way people are, how to motivate them, how to make them, be a lot more fulfilled in their lives and that kind of thing. So much of that is useless, and we're kind of learning that right now with the COVID thing. It's like you see a lot of people being a lot more productive when they're working from home or when they're working remotely, when you don't have a million meetings every day that are just wasting your time. The 8-hour work week is basically a myth, or the 40-hour work week, 8-hour work day is basically, that's not how people work. You spend most of that time gossiping at the cooler, watching YouTube videos, playing on your phone.
Spend more time not working, finding ways to not work.
Right, and at the end of the day, what you're really being paid for is the value of your productivity, not the hours. But it's so much easier to structure a paycheck based on the hours. Yeah, and it's like, well, I mean, so that's getting into a whole other thing.
Oh, for sure,
but,
for sure.
But yeah, I think that one gave me a good insight into how to go about building my own business and how to go about treating other people and accepting kind of, that a lot of the things I was going to be butting up against and a lot of the conflict that I was going to be having were not necessarily related to the people. They were related to the system. And once you can kind of accept that, you kind of know, oh, okay, well, I can't change the system. I can't, I can do my little bits and parts and here and there, and I can try to do whatever. But for the most part, what I want to do is be able to figure out, how do I take what I have and make something else with it? How do I, know that this system exists? How do I make that better and use that to my advantage to do what I want to do?
I think and this is something, if anybody that's watching this has an experience with digital marketing, you're specifically saying, I do stuff with cameras, and it's like when you go to your dentist and they say, you do X, Y, Z. Brushing your teeth is not a complicated thing to explain, but they're like, hey, I want my commercial to look like this, or I want my wedding to look like this, or I want, because they'll have examples from Hollywood, or they'll have examples from TikTok, whatever it is. How do you, I guess as a business, approach people that have no concept whatsoever of how they wouldn't be paying you, or they wouldn't be soliciting your services if they knew how this stuff worked? I guess, how do you adjust people's expectations for what your service is, and then obviously what your service costs and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a big disconnect between, we've learned this the hard way kind of coming into developing our own media stuff, and the computers you need and the software you need and
the amount of time
the
that it takes.
insane amount of time that this stuff takes. How do you bridge that gap between what you know, what they know, and how you develop, like you said, a healthy working relationship with kind of other people?
Yeah, and that's interesting, because that is the crux of the issue as a business owner in general, is how do you explain the value of what you do to someone who has a specific price in mind? And usually the price is the biggest issue, not so much this is what I want, this is whatever. It's like, how much is it going to cost me to get anything? And for us, it was a lot of starting out with kind of just basically being like, what's your budget? Here's what we can do for you at that budget. What I found out is that's self-defeating in a sense, because a lot of the times your lower budgets are going to take you more time, more energy, more babysitting, more everything. Because again, a lot of these people don't know what they want.
Yeah.
So they can't
So
articulate.
they're always going to be unhappy.
Yeah.
Right. They can't articulate what they want. What they're saying in the... It's interesting. Again, I'll bring it back to psychology, but one of the main things that it's helped me with has been translating what a person is saying into what it means in my world. Because to me, the world is this big. This is the world I see. That's the only thing that matters to me. All of this other stuff that's on here is to make this look the way it needs to look. And so that's hard for people who are not in this industry to understand. You know, they think, oh, well, you're just pointing a camera thing. No, I'm doing a lot more stuff than that, because if you want it to look the way you think you want it to look, and a lot of times because our job is to make it look seamless, they think there's not a lot going into it.
Yeah.
The amount of lights that you need to make something look like it is lit by a window is crazy. If you want it to look really good, yeah, you can put somebody next to a window, but then you don't have control of your light. And if all you're doing is, if it's a smaller budget production, if it's a mom and pop shop, this is all they got, then yeah, that'll work great.
Sure.
You'll put up a couple reflectors, and you'll sit in and you'll hope for sunlight, or you'll hope that it's at the right time. You'll try to match the right time of day.
You go back to the Texas weatherman.
Yeah.
Hope and pray, baby.
Yeah,
hope and pray.
You hope that your weather stays the way you want it for that day.
Yeah.
I mean, we just did one for a trampoline company, and it was like, we had set it up for a 2-hour shoot, and of course the day that we're going out there, it's raining. So we're like, well, guess what? We're just going to be under a tree. We're holding a reflector above your heads, because this is the only day you have available. Yeah. And we're going to film it right now, and we're going to make it look like sunlight in post. That's what we're going to do. So that's why I brought extra lights, and we're going to hope they don't get soaking wet. And if they do, I'm charging you for them. But that's kind of where you are. If you've got a bit of a smaller budget, you're sort of stuck there. But bridging that gap of the expectation versus the reality of what you can do is tough, especially for people who have no experience in this world. When you're talking to people with, proper marketing budgets and stuff, they understand that this stuff costs money, and there's a reason you're paying for good skill.
Sure.
And there's a time and energy savings that happens, which ultimately leads to a money savings, if you get it done right the first time, with the right quality of work, with the right budget. But bridging that gap and translating what the customer wants into something that I can work with, that's what you get that really with experience. You deal with enough businesses, you deal with enough brides, you deal with enough people over time, that once you can kind of tell, oh, when they use these words, this is what they mean. There's some keywords that you get when you get, with brides, you'll get light and airy. You know what light and airy means now. That's the same Pinterest thing you see every time. It's a little overexposed, a little washed out.
You're doing Pinterest research. You're like, oh, I gotta look at all these wedding photos.
And then at one point in time, I would have been like, yeah, we can do that. Now I go, that's not really our style. Here's a sample of how our work looks. If you like that, hire us. If you don't, we can recommend somebody who does the style that you do.
Yeah.
And I've built a lot of relationships with other photographers and other videographers, so I can do that. And then you still maintain a good relationship with that client, but you're not sticking yourself in a situation where they're going to be unhappy, you're going to be unhappy, you're going to be butting heads because you're just not in the same place. And I've had a couple of times where it's like, I'll send this stuff and they'll be like, well, I was expecting this. And then they go, well, I never actually looked at the samples you sent me. Which point you go, well,
what can I do for you? What can I do for you?
I have a process, multiple meetings, multiple phone calls.
Yeah.
We have a questionnaire that we send out. I mean, you have all of these things to try and make sure that it's exactly what they want, but at the end of the day, you can't make everybody happy.
Yeah.
You learn to like everything else. You learn to accept it. You learn to be okay with it. You learn to move on to the next person.
I think it's interesting about educating people about what they're buying, because I think if you look at car bags, a perfect example, it's something that almost everyone uses that most people don't understand. Like, what am I buying? What features are important to me? Do I need that? I have a moonroof in my wife's car that I forget is there. This one time I accidentally opened it and I was like, that's been here. Someone paid for that feature that never gets used. We were talking about this the other day with cameras, about how certain brand of camera will sell certain, it has this ISO rating or whatever, it has that. To Joe Blow, I'm just going to take pictures on Instagram. It doesn't matter. But to a filmmaker, it might, or depending on the system.
Well, and depending on what you're filming. I mean, some of these cameras are they're great for like this kind of stuff, but you try to take them on Safari, and they're going to fall apart on you immediately.
Well, I think it's interesting because, and you brought this up about trying to bridge the gap of understanding that you're going to engage in discourse and explaining why what somebody wants is wrong.
Yeah.
And why, and the reason they're wrong is that say, I don't have beef with you. I'm not angry at you. I'm trying to keep you from wasting money. I'm trying to keep you, and that we had talked about discourse before, and like you grow as a provider because you now have learned how to, bring a better product or bring a better customer relationship to that person, and the person you've now worked with has a better education on your specific type of service.
Right.
And so even if it's like a wedding thing, this is a passing moment in time for them, where this is the one time I'm gonna have a video of something. I don't know if I have kids, maybe I have a quinceañera for the people out there. Or moving forward and say, hey, in my business, this is why my marketing strategy should be different. These are now terms within the industry that I can learn. That discourse was productive versus having bad expectations, bad communications. Now everyone's pissed off. All marketing companies are trash, and I hate them all. Like, it's amazing how much communication kind of falls into that. And psychology gets wrapped into this. The Stoic mindset gets wrapped into this. Approach things with the willingness to learn. Not with, no, it's just what I want. I know what I want. I'm an expert in everything. What the hell does this person know? That does it for a living,
Well, also, I think you come off as more of a professional.
Yes.
When you can go to someone who's come to you for a service and you can teach them something about it right off the bat, I'll tell you, 10 out of 10 times I would use that person. If I went to someone for something that I had no idea about, and the first conversation we had, they taught me something about it, you just got my business forever, with as long as I need that type of service.
So I find it interesting that that's the thing that you end up landing on, which is like the biggest problem is communicating to a person and getting them to understand, I don't hate you. I'm not trying to beat you up on price. This is not a negotiation thing. This is explaining the why.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's not even necessarily about the price. It's like to them the price is the main thing, and to me it's like, it's not that I'm trying to charge you more than it's worth. It's not that I'm trying to get the most money out of you. It's that, for one thing, this is what my baseline cost is going to be, and it's like, and based honestly on the kind of customer that you are and kind of the conversation I'm having with you, my flexibility on that price can go up or down, because a lot of times it's like, I can tell you, based on if you're coming to me and your main issue is price, I'm not going to budge on my price, because I already know I'm going to need every single one of those dollars to deal with you. Like, it's going to be extra time. It's going to be extra energy. It's going to be extra planning. It's going to be extra people. It's going to be extra everything. It's going to be extra in post. If your main concept is how do we make this the best it can be, then I'll be more flexible with you on price. You might get a little bit of extra stuff just because I am more, I know that you'll actually, for one thing, appreciate it. But for another thing, you understand what's going into it. So I can relax in knowing that I can do my job without also having to take the time and coordinate you.
Sure.
In a sense, it's like I can focus on what's on set and not have you be a thing that is also on set, as a client. And that's a big thing for me, because you'll deal with all kinds of clients. You'll deal with everybody, and some clients are difficult to deal with, but not necessarily in a bad way. Sometimes they're particular, sometimes they're whatever. But at the end of the day, they still end up being good clients, and they still end up being people you really want to work with and work for. And then there's other people who are, it's just like you are constantly not just hand holding, but also butting heads with them.
Yeah.
And those are the clients where it's like, I don't care how much you're paying me. I don't necessarily need this. Like it's just like it's a headache. It's like the amount of time I'm wasting on this. I could have gotten another 4 jobs that would have paid me the same amount.
Well,
Right.
You know, combined probably.
There's
But
this weird.
Still.
I think there's a weird human element to that. That it's like, it's not the work that bothers me. It's the work relationship that bothers me. And it's I think you could, if we did like a per customer service board, we took everybody that works with people specifically. I don't care if they're insurance adjusters or whatever. Again, it's
Retail.
but it's
Retail workers have the best judgment.
You know, conflict versus discourse. I keep bringing it back, and I think for every company we probably talk to, it's going to be that working relationship in that work group, and how does that work group work towards us all having. It's the whole point of commerce. It's the whole point of trade. Is we hope that we both walk out of this happy. I need you, and you need me. Clearly, or we wouldn't be talking. This conversation wouldn't be happening. But like how. What I believe is the Stoic mindset of not taking stuff personally. You're not charging me because you hate me. You're not adjusting me. Your time is worth something to you. And either I find that work and that time valuable or I don't. And that price point on value, it's not a dollar amount. It's a time investment. It's a work relationship. And you'd be amazed, again, I guess.
Yeah, and you hit on something there that's really important. It's like, I'm not trying to, like, I want both of us to be happy in this transaction, even if that transaction is just, we both say, it's not going to work out, and we move on. You know, it's like the same in any other relationship. It's like, I don't want to be a source of hassle for you either. If you're not getting what you want from me, then that's a failure on my part, whether it's communicating with you up front, communicating with you throughout, understanding what it is you want, and setting expectations properly. At the end of the day, I don't want that either. It's like, I want both of us to be on the same page. It makes it easy on both of us. Both of us leave happy. Both of us are good with what just happened, you know? And so I think that's a big part of learning how to communicate with a client and learning how to communicate. And especially in an industry where, you know, I mean, if you're talking to a plumber, most people have an idea of what it entails, you know, to be
waters
a plumber.
And pipes.
If he's bringing in pipes and he's trying to sell you pipes for super expensive and you can go to Home Depot and get those pipes for $2, you kind of know. This is a very different type of business. This is a very different type of thing.
Very in the gray.
The value varies drastically for the same thing. I could produce the same exact video for 2 different companies and have that video be worth so much more to Coca-Cola than it is worth to the mom and pop soda shop. Why? Because the mom and pop soda shop does not have the audience for it. They don't have the reach. They don't have all this stuff. So I'm going to charge Coca-Cola 10 times more, not just because they can afford it, but because at the end of the day, if I mess that up, that's a way bigger screw up than it is over here. And therefore, I need all of that to make sure that the level is there. And so at the end of the day, when you're dealing with these 2 different types of clients, the other thing too is if I'm dealing with Coca-Cola, I'm going to be dealing with multiple levels of people. I'm going to be dealing with executives. I'm going to be dealing with revisions. It's probably going to be a 6-month ordeal. No, in Pop Shop, we'll knock it out in an hour. Let's go. I'll show you at the end. Do you like it? You think you look good?
A week worth of work, 6 months worth of work.
Awesome. I'll have it for you. I'll have it for you in a couple of days. You know, and I mean, and that's kind of the difference. And it might be the same type of commercial. It might be, it's a girl drinking a soda on ice outside, going, okay, great. It's going to take me...
Almost genius how simple that
It's going to be a crew of 18 people over here. It's going to be 2 guys with a light and a camera
some reflectors next to a window.
Exactly. And
or it could just be some CGI polar bears.
Exactly. CGI polar bears, which are expensive to do.
Millions of dollars worth
Believe
of
that.
polar bears.
I think there's no time like the present to talk about the elephant in the room.
Oh, for sure.
So being a business owner, how has this year kind of affected you?
For those watching at different times, this is December of 2020.
Yes.
2020.
We're not going to talk about what happened because,
Yeah.
we don't want to get demonetized YouTube.
But this is December of 2020.
We all know what's going on.
Contextualize that for yourself.
I'm about to give you tons of disinformation.
So, I'm really curious to know kind of how you handled everything. Because obviously, our world didn't change. We were in a job that we went to work just the same as every other day. Sure, there was some slight manipulation in what we did, but you're a business owner. You work for yourself.
You're a business owner that relies on meeting with people.
Right.
So.
Well, not just that. We're a business owner. We do. I mean, 90% of my business before this was events. Because I have my photo booth company. We did corporate events. I mean, we were filming corporate events, weddings, birthday parties. I mean, the works. And we were, shifting. We do a lot of real estate and we do other stuff, but that was a big thing that we were relying on to kind of kickstart this year. First 2 months of the year, that disappears completely.
Yeah.
I mean, entirely it goes away. We had to refund, we had to cancel, we had to do a bunch of stuff because again, I took your deposit and usually deposit's non-refundable. I can't, this act of God. What am I gonna do? Like, I'm not gonna be the jerk that's gonna.
It falls into the act.
Yeah,
clause.
exactly.
Yeah.
This year was a lot of people lost some deposit money. And
well, that was the
money
thing. It was like you were in a position where everybody was kind of screwed. I was in a position where, I could give that back. It wasn't gonna kill me. So I could give that back. I didn't have to hold on to deposits just to stay alive. So we did lose our apartment. But we had places to stay. It's not like that was the end of the world. And the main thing was just, can we keep paying our studio rent and can we keep our business open? Are we still able to do work?
Yeah.
And so we had the first couple of months. I mean, there was nothing. Nobody knew what was going on. Everything kept changing. All of the rules kept changing.
Nobody wanted to do anything.
Right.
I don't know if the rules have stopped changing.
They haven't stopped changing, but I think most people have kind of figured out
the rules.
They've figured out that the rules are not going to stop changing, and so everybody's just kind of doing what they want now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're going on 10 months.
Yeah.
Like, people are.
And so basically, what I did was I took that time and I was like, okay, well, I have essentially a couple of months where nobody's going to call me, nobody's going to talk to me, nobody's going to bother me, nobody's going to anything
except us.
Except y'all.
Now we're here.
Yeah, but I was like, I know we're gonna, no matter what, I'm gonna have to retool this business because things aren't going back. I knew just because again in the events industry, I was like, if anybody with the first lockdown, I thought anybody who thinks this is 2 weeks is kidding themselves.
Oh sure, yeah.
Like there's no this is 100%.
You don't shut a country down.
No.
For 2 weeks.
You don't. Yeah, no. I was thinking, you if you've got, what was I thinking? I just had it.
I had a thought.
I had a train of thought that I lost. No, yeah. If you thought it was gonna be 2 weeks, you were kidding yourself. There was no way it was gonna be, anything was gonna be under control in 2 weeks. There was no way. It was purely a like when the pilot tells you, oh, well, we're gonna take off in 15 to 30 minutes while you're on the runway. It's just words.
Yeah.
It's just to keep you calm.
Yeah.
It's just a thing that they tell you.
They would just be able to put your seatbelts on. We're only hurtling into the ground at 400 miles per
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah.
Duck your heads and put your seatbelts
Put
on.
on your mask. Hold on to your pillow. And we're fine.
Yeah, we're fine.
Everything's fine. And it's like, no, that's all it was because we knew. I mean, I knew because immediately, like 2 weeks in, Facebook, Microsoft, all of them canceled their entire year. It's like, well, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it for everybody. Everybody's gonna follow that lead.
Yeah.
So we're done at least. Even if everything comes, like these are conferences and conventions that are not they take years to plan, some of them.
Yeah.
There is no way they're coming back this year. And there's also just no way that we're, until there is a vaccine or until there's, I don't know if we'll get demonetized for that word.
Oof, yeah.
But until there is until there is a syringe cure.
Syringe.
Yeah.
We're gonna go bleep that out too.
Yeah.
Probably even syringe.
But basically,
there's a
until there is a permanent treatment or something, it's like you're basically going to be ebbing and flowing, going back and forth between lockdowns.
Let's just call it a solution because no one has a solution at this point.
Until you have a final solution.
We're editing the rest of this out.
But yeah, until you have a solution that is, at least semi-permanent, then you're just not going to go back to what it was. Everybody's going to have to adapt.
Yeah.
And in my thinking, it was, well, everybody's going to have to adapt in a way that I'm very prepared to handle.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we do is video. We have a studio that was half built, so this wasn't this way. I basically took that time, and I went and I invested in soundproofing this place, adding some extra lights, doing extra rigging, setting this place up to be fully functional for digital businesses. Because everybody's gonna have to switch to digital in some way, shape, or form. If you're no contact, then how are you reaching people? If you can't meet with them in person, how are you supposed to communicate with them? Well, the obvious answer is social media, commercials, digital media in some way, shape, or form. So that is what we're set up to do. That has been our business model for years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was harder. you were saying, it was such a harder sell when people didn't understand what that all entailed. Now everybody's having to go out and buy their own webcam, buy their own lights, buy their own stuff. All of a sudden, this stuff is daunting.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, there's an understanding that you have that, oh, this isn't as easy as I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, creating all this stuff and making it look good is really difficult.
And it's very different from what they're used to.
Yes, and you can't quite just do it in your bedroom.
Opening a brick and mortar, sure, you have to have people skills, you have
Mm-hmm.
to have time, you have to have the ability, but it's still just a space. It's still just a brick and mortar store.
Yeah.
You make it look good, you have a good product, boom, you're good to go.
Yeah.
But digital, like, and
Yeah.
think about the long-standing businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Those people aren't young. They haven't grown up with the type of cell phone interaction that we have and the social media networking and all that.
Well,
So,
heck, the 5 years I took out from doing all this stuff, I came back and you're like, oh yeah, there's this and
Yeah.
GTX
Everything's
10,000 and these cameras now are
Everything's
like all
changed.
4K, whatever.
Yeah,
I was like,
just the equipment from when we first started to what it is now, it's grown exponentially in what you can do, what the cameras can do by themselves. You know, back in my day, we were manual focus and
everything.
manual
Yeah,
focus,
this camera
everything.
makes me look
tape decks,
good.
yeah, and it's like now
It's
the
easy.
autofocus is better than what I can do,
With
you
my
know,
hand,
with my
yeah.
hands. You know, it's like yeah. I mean, you basically, in order to beat that autofocus,
We-
you have
we-
to. This has to be your full time job, is to be
we,
pulling focus.
we used to laugh at that switch.
Yeah,
I used to be like, what is this for?
I used
Why
to-
did they even out?
I used to mock people who would use autofocus, and now it's like there's no point in me trying to do manual focus anymore because it saves me so much time.
especially on the more
And
expensive
so much energy.
bracelets.
yeah.
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 You know, and the same thing with, I mean, we have a $3,000 gimbal that we bought way back when, and now half the time I can handhold with a wide angle lens and then warp stabilize.
One button fixes it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, and for some of these, I mean, some of these cameras that some people are getting now that are coming out,
They don't
the
even need
camera
that.
itself,
Yeah.
doesn't even need that. It's got internal stabilization, and you're going, what in the world?
It's wild.
Yeah, it's insane. And so the world is changing, but it means we can do a lot more. There's also a much higher expectation.
I was about to say that it still comes
Mhm.
back to that. Yeah.
And then, of course, with that comes the upfront investment of buying this equipment so you can do all of these things, so you can have the time savings on the back end.
Yeah.
So that it keeps going. But that was how we adjusted. I started doing more real estate. I bought a 360 camera so we could do virtual tours because I knew that was going to be a thing that was going to be needed.
So you didn't just stay in your house and pretend that the world was
I
falling.
did not.
Yeah.
I would have loved that. I would have
Nice.
been so happy
Nice.
if that was all I could have done. But no, I had to basically say, how do I turn this into an opportunity? Which again, well, let's go back to the Stoic
I was
mindset.
about to say.
There it is.
How do you
Single,
take
yeah.
a global pandemic and turn it into something that can be useful and
An
helpful
incident.
and productive?
in 2020?
Yeah.
A global incident.
How do you take a global incident?
Well, let's just call it what it is. You stayed in control of your emotions.
Mhm.
You didn't play the woe is me card.
Mhm.
Everything's against me. What am I going to do? You said, no, I know what my skills are. I know what I can do. I know what I can bring to the table.
Mhm.
You transitioned and pivoted into something different.
Mhm.
Here we are.
Yeah, and I think that's really, really a very important skill set to have in business, especially. I think the Stoic mindset is something that everybody should apply to business because it is such a. I don't care what kind of entrepreneur you are, the ups and downs are insane. I don't care how good unless you got daddy money, and they can
Maybe.
bankroll
Be
every downside that you ever have.
That would be nice.
Yeah,
If you're out there somewhere and you got money for
yeah.
it, please.
It
But
is-
how successful are those people?
No,
usually?
well, honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty
Because
short-lived.
even if you have that kind of money, if you're still going into like partnerships or businesses or,
Mhm.
or meetings emotional and ragey,
Mhm.
good luck, man.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to work with you no matter how
Yeah.
much money you
or
have.
if anytime something goes wrong, you spiral. You
Exactly.
You cannot have that because you're again all you're doing is costing yourself time and money and making yourself
Right.
be in a worse hole
Yeah.
than you were when you got into it. And so that was where this became extremely helpful for me, was to be able to look objectively at the situation that
Yeah.
we were in and say, what can my skill sets do to, turn this into an opportunity, turn this into something positive. Even if it can't be something positive, keep it from being something negative.
Yeah.
Keep it from tanking my business. And so that's kind of how I looked at it. We had to take what was there and find the silver lining, I guess.
Well, I think staying away from the negativity, like you said, that's
Mm-hmm.
huge.
That was an interesting thing. Gil and I actually we had to take it was a defensive tactics course, and they talked about islands.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
They said you're in the ocean, and the ocean's good luck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the ocean.
Good luck not drowning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is just you get sucked out by that tide and you're screwed. And they should say, just find your island. And he says,
Yep.
even if it's a rock, it's a rock. If it's just treading, it's treading. He's
It's
like,
a turtle.
you wait until the
Find a
ocean
big old
gives
tortoise,
you,
man.
Find a big old tortoise and just make him carry
Hang
it.
on.
It's better than drowning.
Yeah.
And so there was this idea that even if it's not positive progress back to the shore, it's stopping the bleeding. It's keeping you from.
Well, it's somewhere you could stay, regroup your thoughts,
Yeah.
and not let yourself spiral out of control.
Mhm.
And I think that's that. I remember when they were talking about that. I was, oh, that sounds good and well. And there's just this like weird bitterness we have when stuff's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
And I call it the Call of Duty. This is bullshit. I know the algorithm's out to
Spike
get
the
me or
controller.
whatever. That you feel, and sometimes it is inherently unfair.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Or they stack it against you on purpose.
Yes.
Mhm.
Because it's a training exercise.
but that it's ultimately that frustration is not, like you said, it's not productive.
Mm-mm.
There's no benefit. It'll take you longer to feel better, even
Mhm.
if you're simply looking at it from a hedonistic standpoint of I just want to feel better and be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's impossible with negativity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You don't see anyone that's full of negativity that's like, oh, I feel great today.
Yeah, no one's ever fixed a problem by crying about it.
Exactly.
And that's not to say don't cry it out. Just stop crying at some point and get to business. You know.
If it's cathartic in the moment, do
Mhm.
it, but understand that it is a very temporary stopgap until you actually.
Yeah, understand that it is a step in a process, not
Yeah.
your end goal.
To go back to my final question for you, kind of given your experience, and obviously you've been doing this since when?
Well, I guess the
Icarus?
business. Yeah, Icarus is in college basically
Yeah.
is when we were
Um,
starting it.
what would be the advice you want to give either to a little one or to anybody kind of going?
Well, to
into
little one,
entrepreneurial?
I'd tell him buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, no kidding, no
Man.
kidding.
Mine Bitcoin back in the day with your gaming computer. What were you doing?
And save your Pokemon cards.
And save your
And-
Pokemon
and
cards.
save
Yeah,
your
go find that
Pokemon cards.
Vaporeon, you jerk.
But yeah, like either people that are entering now with the new reality of
Mhm.
how businesses are going to be run, but also
Mhm.
just for anybody, kind of marking out into the world, saying, "I'm going to do this one thing that's untraditional, or
Mhm.
maybe not supported by what everyone says. Go to school and just work hard."
Yeah. I think the best thing, probably the biggest things that changed the way that I did business and actually improved my business and grew it were understanding that you can't do it alone. There is everybody who says they were a self-made man, whatever, BS. Nobody does it alone. Nobody can do it alone. It's impossible. At the very least, you need clients.
Mhm.
You know, you're not going to
Yeah.
be paying
At the
yourself.
very
Yeah.
least, someone
At
has
the
to
very
buy
least,
stuff,
somebody has
yeah.
to buy your stuff. Somebody has to believe that what you're selling them is worth paying for. So don't think of this as a solo project. Think of this as who are my people? Who is my team? Look for the type of people you want to work with, type of people you want to learn from, the type of people you want to be around, and go seek them out. And it'll take some time to get the right group of people. And you might have some hits and some misses, and there's always going to be people looking to take advantage. But at the end of the day, you learn from all those experiences and learn everything you can. The other thing I would say is, I don't want to say don't give up, because that's cliche, and it's also not always right. So you're going to have to give up on some things. You're going to have, as we always say, you're going to have to kill your babies. That's an editing term that we use, which is basically sometimes that is a beautiful shot that you have, and it's amazing, and you're great. It doesn't fit the story. You have to get rid of it. It doesn't fit in there. And the same thing with your business. Sometimes what you're doing just isn't what you're supposed to be doing. You might have started a business, selling knickknacks on Etsy. If another opportunity comes out and it's something that's better and fits you better, you don't necessarily have to give up on the other thing fully, but start transitioning. Start figuring out, is this something better? The same thing, that was something this taught me as well, was, weddings aren't really what I want to do. Weddings they were good money, but at the end of the day, they weren't profitable either.
Yeah.
There were a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of work, and at the end of the day, they weren't fulfilling, and they weren't the type of work I got into this to do. And so being able to switch over to the corporate, and we took a little bit of a hit at the beginning, but we're doing a lot better now, and learning to differentiate between those moments of, is this just a roadblock in my way that I have to get over, or is this a detour that I have to take?
Yeah.
Those are two different things, and you have to learn to differentiate between them. And a big part of that is experience, but another part of that is go get a mentor. Go find somebody who's been through it all.
Yeah.
They can tell you exactly what those look like. And that was one big thing for me, was I found a couple of business owners that had been doing this for a bit longer than I had, who had gone through this all, who had been in the corporate world for a very long time and had seen both sides of it, and could tell me, this is what you want to avoid. a big part of it was just learn to say no. Was one thing that I
Yeah.
picked up was the best piece of advice ever given to me was learn to say no to a client. If their budget doesn't fit, if their style doesn't fit, just say no. You'll find some other client. You might eat ramen for a couple weeks, but somebody else will come along that'll fit better.
Yeah.
And you will not have wasted those weeks losing out on something. You know, you could spend that time marketing. You could spend that time doing a bunch of other stuff. So don't be afraid to say no to something. Don't be afraid to, move away from something.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid. Just don't be afraid in general. Be accepting. Be open.
Mm-hmm.
Be okay with your circumstances. And that will get you through so much of the struggle that business owners, where they end up failing, is when they let those roadblocks and those failures overtake them.
Yeah.
That's where you lose it. It's like, it might not be the business you wanted to start, but it's the business you end up in. That's fine. You're still doing what you're doing.
That's success. Ultimately,
that's success.
Looks like.
Yeah. I mean, how many business owners you heard of that, they started doing one thing and now they're, something else completely. They had how many failed businesses before they finally hit the thing?
Yep.
Sure.
You see a lot of serial entrepreneurs. That's what they do is, they started a restaurant, they started this, they started that, and eventually they ended up with microchips. And now they're IBM or whatever.
Dude, that IBM.
IBM money,
anyways, I appreciate you sitting down and taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, of course.
Our objective here is to try to bring some more education to everyone and take things that we're not experts in. Again, we have cameras, we know how to do things, but it's not clearly on the level.
And who helped us get our cameras?
Yes. Juan helped us build.
I did all the shopping.
Computers, all this.
True.
Yeah,
I built the computers. Yeah,
He said,
too.
he said, here, you guys want to spend some money on some stuff? Here's your shopping list.
Yeah.
And we bought like half of the shopping list and still ended up poor.
And then I made it work.
Yeah.
Exactly my point. You have a budget,
Yeah.
but you're flexible.
Yeah, but
And you're open.
but you're flexible. And you're open. It's not a roadblock. It's just
Yeah.
a detour.
So then I'm more than
couple
willing to make it
detours.
work.
If you have any needs for like media production, digital stuff, come to Icarus Independent. Like I said, they're here out of Dallas. He's going to be all over our stuff. Again, I'm very good personal friends with Juan himself. And then hopefully we can see you guys next time we bring somebody on and feel bad. Stay stoic.
Stay stoic, bro.